Hey everyone, I thought I'd make a quick video to show the pivot table example again, just to walk you through the steps. It's here in the document, but I want to go through it so you can see it happen. You can see how I do it. I'll do it for both examples, both disaggregating math and reading scores by race ethnicity and disaggregating it by free lunch status. So we have some very simple data here. It looks like 25 students. We have information on their math and reading scores. We have their race ethnicity, as well as their free lunch status. So what we want to do when we get data sets like this that have some categorical variables that tell us a little bit about the students, as well as quantitative variables like a test score, pivot tables are great for finding averages by these subgroups or by disaggregating. So I'm going to start by selecting our data, and I'm going to use this data window and go down to pivot table. Now it's saying, okay, where do you want me to put this pivot table? I'm going to paste it here in this existing sheet, just right under the instructions. And that's where the pivot table itself will be created. And so now we have some options, and it's, guessing what we might want. So average of reading for each race ethnicity. So if I click on that, it auto-populates. It just creates it for reading, okay? And so let's notice what it did. It took on the row, the race ethnicity, by ascending order, so that would be in alphabetical order. And it, under this values box, created an average of the reading score. Now, let's say that I also want the math score, because I just have reading here and I want reading and math. All I need to do is just click add for this values tab, and I can just click on math. And notice when I do that, it defaults to the mathematical function of adding them all up or creating the sum of that. But what we really want is the average. So by switching that, I now have a table of average of reading and average of math. Now, these tables you can edit. So I could just rename this one reading and rename math, and I could put a note down below that these represent the averages. Let's say I want one decimal place, then I can just add increased decimal places here. I want to get it down to one. Right? And then we have the overall average. So that's the first pivot table we created. It was pretty straightforward. Google Sheets guessed that that's what we might want. So this time I'll take you through the full process with race ethnicity. So we start the same way by selecting our data, clicking this data window here and going down to pivot table. I'm going to do an existing sheet, and I'm going to click right underneath our race ethnicity one, and I'll create it. So for my rows, I want to do a similar setup, but this time I want to do free lunch status. So it's no or yes. Are they free lunch or are they not? And then under values, I now just want to add my reading score. And again, it defaults to the sum of those. It adds them up, but we want to change that to average. And we want to do that same thing again for math. So I'm going to add my math and switch it to average. And now I have my math and reading scores. And again, I can edit these however I want, but I have, in this case, my averages for each one of these subgroups. And notice the pattern now. That the fun part is you've done, the work of creating the pivot table, but now we can look at the trends and patterns and see that our Latina students here are doing, on average, performing the lowest in reading and math. Next would be our African-American student population, and then our white population. And for free lunch, we might have, looks like those that are free lunch on average are performing quite a bit lower than those who are not. Okay, so those are generally the trends and patterns we tend to see. But the idea just being this would give a teacher a good sense of where they would need to target. And pivot tables are a great way, again, to take quantitative information like test scores and break them down by categories, like in this case, subgroups that we care about and we want to know more about.